Of the Maryland State Firemen's Association to order. This time, the chair recognizes from the Department of Natural Resources, Chris Robertson.
Thank you, President Kurtz, officers, past presidents, delegates, members, and guests. I'm pleased to be with you today, give an update on the activities of the Maryland Forest Service. During 2022, the Maryland Forest Service responded to 124 wildfires, burning 3,129 acres. The leading wildfire causes in Maryland continues to be debris burning and arson. Also in 2022, the agency and partners conducted 98 prescribed burns on 9,110 acres for hazard mitigation and other resource benefits. So far for 2023, the agency has responded to 136 wildfires, burning 4,373 acres. Obviously a pretty good increase from 2022. And we've also completed 100 prescribed burns for 8,794 acres to date. Maryland Forest Service was very busy in 2022 supporting mobilization of wildland firefighters across the country, along with other equipment and assisting our federal partners and other state agencies on wildfires. We dispatched 7 dozers, 9 Type 6 wildfire engines, 1 initial attack crew, and 15 single resources. In all, a total of 74 Maryland fire crew members worked on 23 incidents in 10 states. So far in 2023, we've dispatched 1 Type 6 engine to an incident in Pennsylvania to assist the U.S. Forest Service. The remainder of the 2023 fire season is expected to be normal for most of the country, a little bit above average for the northern tier states, as we can see with the fires going on in Canada today. The 2022 volunteer fire assistance grants were awarded to 53 volunteer fire departments in 12 counties for a total of $131,702 distributed. All the projects are a minimum of 50-50 match and used to enhance wildfire protection in their local communities. The 2023 VFA grant application period is currently open and accepting applications. This year, approximately $140,000 in VFA grant funding will be available for awards to volunteer fire departments. The maximum grant award this year has been raised to $3,500 from the typical $3,000, with qualifying expenses in the amount of $7,000 or more. Applications are once again being accepted through a Google form. Application deadline is July 15th, 2023. Grant awards will be announced by the middle of September. All eligible volunteer fire companies are encouraged to apply. The Department of Defense Firefighter Property Program and Federal Excess Property Programs continue to support fire departments statewide by providing valuable equipment and supplies. In 2022, the program processed 35 transfer orders, acquired nearly $268,000 in property and equipment for the state of Maryland. All property is acquired at no cost to the agency for use by the Maryland Forest Service and fire departments. Equipment acquisitions included such items as 2.5-ton trucks, pickups, vans, SUVs, UTVs, dump trucks, generators, office furniture, and many other items. Departments interested in acquiring equipment can submit a request form using Google Forms. Please see our website for the link to use the form. The agency continues to improve our wildfire suppression equipment. In 2023, FY23, the agency was able to use revenue from out-of-state fire response to purchase 6 1-ton trucks that would build up into Type 6 engines, and 1 fire suppression dozer with transport truck. For FY23, the agency's fleet budget was given a boost of $1.25 million for fleet upgrades. This unprecedented fleet budget will replace nearly half of the agency's deteriorating fleet. Similar funding in FY24 will hopefully provide an additional boost to our declining fleet. Additionally, in FY23, the agency will be using the state's loan lease program to replace 2 additional transport trucks. The Maryland Forest Service has been awarded a $300,000 wildfire risk and reduction grant from the USDA Forest Service entitled Maryland's Statewide Risk and Reduction of Wildfires. This grant will continue to fund the FireWise Maryland program for the next 2 years. These grants enable the agency to develop community wildfire protection plans in conjunction with fire departments and complete recommended mitigation activities to reduce wildfire risk. Currently, there are 84 CWPPs in Maryland that covers 1,180 communities. New grant opportunities through the President's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will be providing additional funding to each state for wildfire hazard mitigation, expanding the use of prescribed fire, and building capacity. Funding through the State Fire Capacity, Volunteer Fire Capacity, and the Community Wildfire Defense Grant Program has been received by the department and will be used to supplement the funding of our existing programs and to stand up the Community Wildfire Defense Grant Program. Just last week, Maryland once again hosted the Mid-Atlantic Wildfire Training Academy at Garrett College, McHenry. The Training Academy is sponsored by the Mid-Atlantic Interagency Forest Fire Compact and the U.S. Forest Service. The Academy provided NWCG wildland fire courses to refresh and enhance qualifications for 250 wildland firefighters from across the Mid-Atlantic region. The group also raised over $11,000 to support efforts of the Wildland Firefighter Foundation, whose mission is to support the families of wildland firefighters killed in the line of duty and to support injured wildland firefighters and their families. The Mid-Atlantic states lost 2 wildland firefighters in the line of duty this spring, making this effort even more meaningful. Our agency continues to see above normal turnover through retirements, and the trend is expected to continue over the next several years. Fortunately, the department is currently receiving approval to fill all these positions. Finally, I would like to say thank you to the presidents, past presidents, officers, and the member companies of MSFA that work with the Maryland Forest Service on a regular basis. You as volunteers are essential to helping us with our mission of wildfire suppression and prevention. Please stop by our booth and see the ways our agency can assist you and your department. Thank you.
Chris, thank you for your report. I'd like to present you with a challenge coin and a convention mug. At this time, we'll have the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute report by Director Michael Cox.
Okay, good afternoon. President Kurtz, Vice Presidents Smothers and Carey, and the officers, delegates, and members of the Maryland State Firemen Association. It's been an honor for the faculty, staff, and instructors of the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute to work with the various committees and members of the MSFA this year to continue to provide state-of-the-art emergency services training programs to the EMS fire and rescue departments in our great state. This year, we were able to continue to provide a vast array of diverse programs to help our emergency responders prepare themselves to mitigate the numerous incidents they are faced with day in and day out. During this this year, we have put more than 21,000 students through MSFA programs statewide. This resulted in about 1,600 different program deliveries, totaling more than 494,000 instructional hours. With the direct assistance of the MSFA and our other emergency services partner groups this year, we were able to continue to provide world-class emergency services training through numerous portions of our programs. One is the revision and rewrite of more than 50 of our training programs. The others were continuing to develop the extension training programs to address current issues facing our responders, continue to have the EMT and EMR exam scores that exceeded the national average. We continue to host Pearson View testing in all 7 of our MSFA regions and training centers. We continue to make significant investments in the newest equipment and props for our students to ensure that they have the best hands-on experience possible. We continue to relax our minimum student enrollment requirements to ensure that our students get the training they need, even when the numbers for a class is not full. We also continue to focus much of our attention on the preparation for the National Pro Board and IFSAC reaccreditation visits that are scheduled for September and November of this year. Similarly, as the chairman of the Maryland Instructor Certification Review Board, I bring greetings on behalf of the MICRB board members. I would like to thank not only the members of our organizations and our partners, but also the Maryland Higher Education Commission and Dr. J.A. Perman, Chancellor of the University System of Maryland, whose support is invaluable to the work of the MICRB board. The last meeting of the MICRB was held on May 10th, 2023. This was the 194th meeting of this body, and at the conclusion of this meeting, there were 786 state emergency services instructors, 267 state emergency instructor evaluators, and 16 instructor trainers, all of whom I'd like to mention are certified to educate and train our emergency services providers. Since my last report at this convention 1 year ago, the board has approved Washington County as a new sponsoring agency, as well as 22 new professional development opportunities for instructors to meet their continuing education requirements. I want to thank the MSFA for allowing us to provide PDI here each year at the convention for those Maryland MICRB instructors who are attending the convention. Moreover, I want to mention that our exceptionally skilled instructor trainers and subject matter experts continue to be the force behind evaluating, developing, and delivering new trends in education that expands the perspectives of our instructors. The board prides itself on oversight of training and certification issues that may affect the standards and necessitate changes. As such, the board has also implemented a few new policies that will help clarify and facilitate the steps of our certification processes for our sponsoring agencies as they navigate our processes. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the members of the Maryland Fire Rescue Education Training Commission for the collegial relationship that we have with them and their assistance to clarify and address any compliance matters that arise. In closing, on behalf of the faculty, staff, and instructors at the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, as well as the members of the Maryland Instructor Credentialing Review Board, I would again like to thank the members of the MSFA for all their hard work and unwavering commitment to this system that we have here in our state. These outstanding services that you provide to the visitors and residents of our state is a true testament to your dedication and continued success in making Maryland's emergency services the best that they can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Hang on a second. Okay. Mike, we want to thank your friendship and cooperation that you've given the MSFA over the many years, and it's been an honor and a privilege of working with you this year. So I want to present you with a challenge coin, and we have At this time, the chair recognizes Keona Black. She represents the Maryland Fire Rescue Higher Education Training Commission. Keona.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am here as a commission member representing Chairman Jerome to offer you this year's report. Thank you to the ladies and gentlemen of both the MSFA and Auxiliary for having us. We had two longstanding commissioners retire this year, so I wanted to give a special thanks to Mr. Robert Cumberland, Carroll County, of over 30 years of faithful service to the commission, as well as Mr. John Delina, Baltimore County, with over 12 years of service with the commission. We greatly appreciate their efforts and the dedication they have to the higher education of fire and rescue personnel. We are still in the process of tracking changes to the MICRB Orange Book, and we are waiting for words from the Higher Education Commission as a whole to let us know that those changes are in effect. Additionally, one of our primary initiatives this coming year will be increasing applications to the Charles Riley Scholarship, which is funded through the state of Maryland for volunteer and career Maryland staff in fire, EMS, and rescue. And with that, I hand it back to the president. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your report. We'd like to present you with our convention mug. At this time, we have the report from the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, Secretary Russell Strickland.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it, and I thank you all for sticking around to listen to this. Let me just go through a couple items. First off, I would like to recognize the association and the association's officers and the support that they have given the State Department of Emergency Management this past year, in particular as we transitioned from an agency to a department. So it was really essential, the support in the background and work that we took over, particularly with the 508, the VCAF, Widows and Orphans Fund, with that. And the other item, too, I would like to recognize to the association is the passing of past President Terry Thompson, who was a direct report to me for the last 7.5 years. So we're going to greatly miss him and his participation on our behalf with the association. But with that, let's let you know that we're working closely with our new administration on how emergency management can support Governor Moore's top priorities. The governor, lieutenant governor, and full cabinet have participated in discussion-based exercise at the May cabinet meeting, and they are committed to coordinated state response to disasters. Our staff remains primarily teleworking, though, while our building is under renovation. We thank and recognize several volunteer fire departments across the state who have opened their doors and community halls to our staff for meetings. Your partnership is greatly appreciated in that area. We continue to administer, as I mentioned, the VCAF program, the Voluntary Company Assistance Fund, the Amos Fund distribution. We know these are critical for your operations to remain supporters of these programs. And in specific with those programs, too, I really, really appreciate the association's support to Scott Gordon, who for the past 17 years has done those programs and administered those and continues to do that in an excellent fashion. We continue to participate in exercises to increase our readiness for disasters. Recently, we were involved in an exercise with FEMA called FEMA's Region 3's Rising Phoenix Recovery Exercise. We're the only state to volunteer to participate in that exercise recovery while including participation with state, federal, and local organizations. We also recently participated in the recent Maryland Search and Rescue Task Force training exercise, which included local and state agency participation and focused on interagency coordination during a multi-jurisdictional event requiring SAR response. The Maryland Mesonet implementation is ongoing, and those of you who are not familiar with that, that's a system of weather stations that we're setting up around the state that will give us hopefully just a few seconds greater warning when it comes to flooding as well as wind. It'll give us more real-time information on the ground and be able to get a better alert out to people in that area. And finally, we're in hurricane season, which means we've launched our annual Know Your Zone campaign. If you'd like to partner up with us on getting the word out to your residents to know their hurricane evacuation zone, you can reach out to our communications team. We've also been awarded a direct support grant from FEMA to evaluate hurricane evacuation plans, which kicks off this month. And this past legislative session was very successful. with us and the passing of a notable piece of legislation called the State Disaster Recovery Fund. And this fund is really designed to fill the gap when communities who are impacted by disasters that don't qualify for federal disaster declaration funding. This funding does not have an appropriation currently, but we are working with stakeholders on the policy and program development while possibly funding options are available. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the 911 board is part of our department, and we are currently in the process of hiring a new executive director. The board's chair, Jack Markey, remains in place, and we will be welcoming several new board members in July. And with that, that would conclude our report. We thank you very, very much.
I want to thank Russ. I've known Russ Strickland for many, many years, and he's a very supporter to the fire, EMS, and rescue services in the state of Maryland. Russ, on behalf of the MSFA, I want to present you. Come out here with a convention mug for a photo op.
Okay,
The chair recognizes the Fire Marshal Brian Geraci for his report.
Here we go. Good afternoon, Ocean City. How we doing? How we doing? It's a beautiful day at the beach. That's for sure. So we're gonna do things a little differently this year from previous years. So just want to give you all a heads up. We're gonna do the awards first instead of last and a couple other things, but bear with us and we'll get through this. So there's also another award we have to give out to one of our deputy state fire marshals. So on behalf of Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller and Colonel Butler, Secretary of Maryland State Police, bring you greetings from all three folks. Sorry they couldn't be here. I tried to get the Colonel to come down, and his schedule just wouldn't allow him to do it. So hopefully he'll be here in the next year for one of the other conferences that y'all have. So I speak for the entire staff of the Office of State Fire Marshal when I say congratulations to your outgoing association presidents, Ben Kurtz and Malia Dalton. Your terms in office have been extremely productive, and your service to your members is one your association should be very proud of. I certainly appreciate the long-standing partnerships that we've had with MSFA and the LA MSFA. Not only have we developed relationships, but friendships as well over these many years. So we have a new look, and maybe you saw some of my folks downstairs, but we have a new look, and we want to introduce you to them today and bring them out. We've established an honor guard within the Office of the State Fire Marshal, commanded by Senior Deputy State Fire Marshal Zach Dell, and we're going to bring them on the stage now if they can come out, and we'll show you our new look. See what you think. Huh? We're looking pretty sharp, huh? Yeah. We're looking pretty sharp. This is our honor guard that is in place. Obviously, have some more training to do. We just got started. We haven't even bought flags. We're buying flags and everything else. But we wanted to show you what that looks like. You're going to start seeing more of them now once they get up to speed. At, obviously, here at convention and a few other ceremonies that around the state. So wanted to make sure you got a good look at them today, and we wanted to bring them out and show them to you all. So thank you guys. I think they look great. So we have another award for one of our deputies, and this is a life-saving award. On December the 12th of last year, Deputy State Fire Marshals Chin, Travers, McIntyre, and McDonald were on duty down here on the lower shore eating lunch at the Pecan Deli. And next door to the pharmacy, when somebody came inside and asked, "Does anyone know CPR?" Well, everybody's hand, yeah, we know. Tim here went immediately over to the store, recognized that this young lady was in distress and needed CPR. She was a cardiac arrest. Deputy McDonald started CPR immediately. We have Deputy Travers had a AED in his vehicle. He went to retrieve that. And by the time we got back, the paramedics were on site. But the outcome was very good. Salisbury EMS paramedic Sergeant Chris Truitt stated that if not for the quick action of Deputy Fire Marshal McDonald, the woman's chance of survival would have been grim. Paramedic Truitt told me the victim was released from Tidal Mental Health Center 1 week after she went in after a cardiac arrest. So, tremendous job. So it's not only that we're doing obviously fire investigations, but our lunch is getting interrupted with working code. So, but tremendous job, tremendous effort from Tim, and obviously saved this woman's life, and we're grateful for that. And obviously we're out there every day to help the community, and this is one way we're doing it. So, Tim. So now I'd like to introduce Chief Deputy State Fire Marshal Jason Robery, as he will announce the Regional Deputy State Fire Marshals of the Year. Chief?
Hello, good afternoon. I'd like to ask that you now join me in honoring the Regional Deputy State Fire Marshals of the Year for 2022. Deputy State Fire Marshal Timothy McDonald, Lower Eastern Shore. Deputy State Fire Marshal John Grothy, Upper Eastern Shore Region. Deputy State Fire Marshal Elise Velez, Southern Region. Deputy Velez is not here. She's actually on leave out of the country right now, so she's not able to accept her nomination. We have Deputy State Fire Marshal William Ben Pennock, Northeast Region. Deputy State Fire Marshal Adam Rounds, Western Region. And we have Deputy State Fire Marshal Michael Redding of our Bomb Squad unit. Each of these individuals represents their peers in this agency with great devotion and distinction. Each has gone beyond the call of duty, and what is unique about this group is they have a combined 22 years on the job. 5 deputies have less than 5 years and 1 has less than 10 years, which demonstrates the quality of our folks that we are hiring for the agency. They come to work every day looking forward to changing to the challenges of making Maryland a safer place to live, work, play, and raise a family. It is important to note that each of these deputies has aspired to this level with the strong support of their supervisors, administrative staff, and their fellow fire safety inspectors, fire protection engineers, and deputy state fire marshals. As always, the job of a Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year selection committee is extremely difficult, and this year is definitely no exception. I want to thank all of the members that served on the committee. The letters of nomination were filled with examples of exemplary duty and customer service deserving of much more than this award provides. To each of you, I sincerely thank you for your service and devotion. Let's all give them a hand, please. Thank you. I now have the great pleasure of introducing to you the 2022 James C. Robertson Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year. During 2022, this deputy excelled in their responsibilities involving the fire marshal profession. This deputy established themselves as a dedicated worker with great attention to detail and willingness to cooperate in any situation. This deputy has consistently demonstrated desire to continually improve themselves through training, research, and collaborations with partners both in and outside of our agency. They always represent the Office of the State Fire Marshal in a professional manner and are oftentimes requested by other deputies to assist in investigations and assignments. This deputy was cited for their many achievements in 2022, such as investigating 23 fire and explosive incidents as primary and fire investigator. 5 of those incidents were criminal in nature, and all 5 of those criminal cases were closed with an arrest. They also assisted other investigators within the region on 36 fire and explosive incidents and additional investigator on the scene. During 2022, this deputy continued their training by taking multiple courses in the field of fire investigation. Some of that training included the Maryland State Police 5-day Basic Investigator course, Fatal Fire Investigations, Marine Fire Investigations, and the Reed Technique of Interview Interrogation, Expert Testimony, Basic Fire Investigator and Motor Vehicle Investigations course, and took numerous online classes related to the job. This deputy recently volunteered to take the Juvenile Fire Setting Prevention and Intervention course at the National Fire Academy. Our agency has begun a plan for how to better respond to this critical issue and adapt to the challenges made in how our state handles juvenile offenders. This deputy also assisted in conducting 20 fire and life safety inspections. Most of these inspections were of firework displays to ensure the site and the chute were safe for the spectators at the events, including the 4th of July celebrations, weddings, baseball stadium shoots, and other private events. This deputy is always willing to assist in public demonstrations and public safety events as needed, and is a regular participant in Shop with the Cop, both at Christmas and back to school program, and enjoys their time spent assisting families through the beneficial programs. This highly respected investigator has excelled in every aspect of their career. It is my honor to present to you the recipient of the James C. Robertson Award, recognizing Deputy State Fire Marshal of the Year for 2022, Deputy State Fire Marshal Halise Valez of the Southern Region. Deputy Valez is not here, and will be accepting on her behalf will be her commander, Deputy Chief John Nelson.
We've got great folks, huh? They do a great job each and every day out there protecting your communities, not only protecting the citizens of Maryland, but protecting our firefighters as well. So taking those bad guys off the street, doing those inspections, is very important for us. And obviously, you're always in the back of our minds to protect you as well. This is one of the reasons why we do what we do. So now we're going to continue on and give you the report from the Office of the State Fire Marshal. But I'm here to inform you today that the state of Maryland has seen the worst increase in fire deaths in the first 3 months of 2023 than any other time in recent years. Maryland still has a fire problem. In the first 3 months of this year, we lost 31 individuals to fire. This is a number that we've not seen in decades, and clearly shows that we have much more work to do in all our communities, from down here on the Eastern Shore to the mountains of Western Maryland, to prevent these fires from occurring. This trend prompted me to send a letter to all Marylanders that got the attention of many media outlets and an email to all the fire chiefs in our larger jurisdictions. I hope that this attention worked in the fact that we did not see any residential fires during the month of April. So I'm proud of the efforts of those departments that have embraced fire prevention as their most important service. As a reminder, in 2020, the state of Maryland saw its lowest number of fire deaths in the history of the state. 51 individuals lost their lives to fire in 2020, but that was way still too many. Fire deaths and injuries are moving in the wrong direction based on the numbers over the last 2 years and going into this year. By preventing fires, we do not see the deaths and injuries to our civilians and our firefighters. Our firefighters are not exposed to byproducts of combustion, get cancer, and have other medical emergencies as seen last year. Property is not destroyed and individuals can stay in their homes. One high-rise fire this year killed one civilian, injured several civilians and firefighters, and displaced hundreds of occupants. We know that smoke alarms and residential sprinklers are saving lives in the state. However, here we are in 2023 and we still find homes without working smoke alarms or no smoke alarms at all. In 2022, 424 incidents reported no smoke alarms present. And why do you think that is? People aren't getting the message. We need to get out there into the community and talk to these folks. You need to go out and knock on doors. You need to check smoke alarms. We need to install smoke alarms. Got to engage with their communities. Let them know that you're there to help them. The message is a simple one. Have working smoke alarms on every level of your home, outside each sleeping area, and in each bedroom. Close those bedroom doors at night. Close before you doze. Have it practice an escape plan. Get out and stay out and make that 911 call immediately. We had 2 folks this year already that went back into their homes after the fire had started to go rescue an individual or retrieve some type of material. People go back in their houses, you're not coming back out. You all know that. I don't have to tell you that. But we got to let those people know that. You got to let people in your community know. Once they get out, they got to stay out. All 5 things that we need to focus on, but it needs to get out to communities, not just during Fire Prevention Week, but all year long. Therefore, I'm asking you, as I did last year, to step up your fire prevention efforts in your communities and within your department and make fire prevention your most important service, and take every opportunity to get our fire prevention message out. So it's now my privilege to report to you from the Office of the State Fire Marshal. The Maryland Fire Incident Reporting System is an extremely valuable resource to collect data and can be used in determining what actions are needed to prevent fires in the future and to provide this valuable data to our local and state elected officials. On-time reporting continues to be a struggle for some departments, but I'm happy to report that last year we got all everybody's reports in for 2022. So thank you for that. And I appreciate everybody's efforts in getting those reports in and getting them in on time. Because it's important for us to look at that data and see what the trends are. As we can see, the trends in fire fatalities are going up. They're going across the country, they're going up. People have less time than they do at any other time of the year to escape a home fire. So again, we need to get out in those communities. We're asking all departments to have the reports into the agency by the 10th of each month for the preceding month's responses as required by statute. Please know that the U.S. Fire Administration has plans in the works to update and completely change the fire reporting system by the year 2025. The systems that you have in place now are going away. Be aware of that. It's going to be an app-based system. The U.S. Fire Administration has always reached out to the UL Fire Safety Institute to develop a new app and develop a new system for reporting fire incidents. So it's coming, and I would ask that you become knowledgeable of the changes that are coming and embrace the changes when the new system rolls out here in the state. In 2022, the state of Maryland had 13,413 fires. Of those, 5,521 were structure fires, and out of those, 4,183 were residential structures. There were 62 civilian injuries, 70 civilian fire deaths, and the fire service suffered 75 injuries and 9 deaths. 3 on the fire ground, 4 suffered medical emergencies, and 2 were COVID related. The total estimated dollar loss in 2022 was $268,356,593. Smoke alarms were present in 929 incidents, and residential sprinklers were present in 154 incidents. All of these numbers are increases over the numbers as seen in 2021. In 2022, the state of Maryland saw the number of fire deaths increase when compared to 2021. Total number of fire deaths in 2022 was 70, which was an 11.1% increase over the 63 fire deaths suffered in 2021. In 2022, as in other years, most fire deaths occurred in residential structures, including 41 deaths in single 1 and 2 family homes, 7 deaths in apartments, and 4 deaths in mobile homes. Residential fires accounted for almost 74% of all the fire fatalities in the state. 1 child lost their life to fire in 2022. That's the great news from that. We only lost 1 child last year. It was an infant. They obviously couldn't escape the fire. So we had 22 victims ages 18 through 49, 26 victims aged 50 to 69, and 21 fire death victims aged 70 or older. Consistent with most previous years, more fire deaths occurred in early morning hours from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. The primary identified causes for fatal fires in 22 were smoking materials, electrical, vehicle collisions, and arson homicides. In comparison to previous years, 2022 showed a decrease in the total number of multi-fatality fires, which was 4 fires in the 65 fires for the year. Similar to multi-fatality fires, the number of multi-deaths and fatal fires decreased in comparison to the prior year to only 9 deaths. Hoarding can present hazards, which can result in catastrophic fire-related events that jeopardize the safety of all concerned, including but not limited to the occupants and your emergency responders. The Office of State Fire Marshal continues to educate the public regarding the dangers of hoarding. We had 13 deaths resulting from 13 hoarding-related fires, which was a 20% increase in the total fires reported for the entire year. Obviously, we're seeing more and more of these. These are very dangerous structures, and we ask if you encounter these to obviously reach out to us, reach out to your Department of Social Services, other folks in your community that can help these folks, and we can try to make these homes safer for them and safer for us. As always, the Office of the State Fire Marshal works side by side with our fire service partners in Annapolis this year. Session and Maryland General Assembly, the MSFA, is to be commended for their leadership, diligence, and continued support in working with the Office of the State Fire Marshal and members of the Maryland Fire Service. The MSFA Legislative Committee continues to be vigilant on key issues, share information on important topics, and communicate with key legislators, especially this year, as many new senators, delegates, and a new administration were in place. The Legislative Committee is to ensure that all of the volunteers across the state remain safe and recognized in Annapolis. As the State Fire Marshal, I wholeheartedly continue to appreciate the partnerships our agencies share with local and state governments as well as private industry. These partnerships help us secure resources, disseminate information, and provides training which allows us to be more effective at accomplishing our tasks in pursuit of fire and life safety. One of our long-standing partners is the MSFA Fire Prevention and Life Safety Committee. Our own Teresa Ann Chrisman, who chairs this committee, has done an outstanding job over the many years and is a tremendous asset to our agency. Thank you, Teresa. Our partnership with the chapters of the National Fire Sprinkler Association and the American Fire Sprinkler Association has provided training for fire inspectors across the state, and we thank them for this continued successful program. Over the many years, the public-private partnership with Pepco and Delmarva Power has enabled the distribution of well over 35,000 smoke alarms. In 2022, Delmarva Power donated 2,000 10-year steel battery smoke alarms to fire departments across the Eastern Shore. It was Delmarva's 25th year in providing its life-saving devices for our communities. Statewide initiatives advocating the installation, maintenance, and testing of 10-year steel battery smoke alarms, coupled with developing and practicing home fire escape plans to include closing doors at night, continuing to help communities reduce fire deaths and injuries. I want to thank and commend all the folks that are involved with the Fire and Burn Safety Coalition of Maryland. This group works with local fire companies to install smoke alarms and seal alarms for the deaf and hard of hearing. In 2022, this group, along with fire service partners, installed 40 alarms, which is protecting 63 individuals across the state. Please visit with these folks to learn more about what they do and how you can help them with their efforts across the state in the OSFM booth downstairs. They're downstairs with us. As a reminder, please take part in Community Risk Reduction Weekends offered each year for fire departments across the state to get out and step up their respective communities to offer installation of smoke alarms and provide fire and life safety information. Just had the last one in May, and it was fairly successful. So the next statewide reduction weekend is in October 21st to 22nd of this year. Again, we ask that all your departments focus on that weekend and get out into the community, knock on those doors, check smoke alarms, install smoke alarms, provide smoke alarms. They shouldn't be sitting in a closet somewhere at the firehouse. We need to get them out and installed. This year, the Office of the State Fire Marshal collaborated with departments in their regions for the CRR weekend in May, and we're doing so again in October. 352 smoke alarms were provided and or installed during this weekend. I ask that all the Maryland departments use this opportunity to check and or install life-saving 10-year steel battery smoke alarms in the homes of citizens they serve and have sworn to protect from the effects of fire. Community Risk Reduction Weekends for next year are May 18th and 19th and October 19th through 20th. The Mid-Atlantic Life Safety Conference will be celebrating its 64th year in September. Originally billed as the Governor's Fire Prevention Conference, began in August of 1959 when then Governor Tawes saw a need for a statewide conference on fire prevention. Please mark your calendars for Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, for yet another well-prepared conference. Please go to the Mid-Atlantic Life Safety Conference.com website and fill out your application to attend this well-rounded conference again for you and your peers. It's free again this year, so please attend, and lunch is always pretty good there. So if you want a free lunch, come out to the Mid-Atlantic Life Safety Conference. During that conference, the prestigious John C. Spiker Senior Excellence in Life Safety Educator of the Year will be presented. Nominations are currently open until August 4th. Again, log on to the Mid-Atlantic Life Safety Conference.com website, and you can see the folks downstairs in our booth. On Saturday, March 25th of this year, the Public Fire Life Safety Educator Seminar was held at Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, College Park. Over 100 motivated personnel were in person and online streaming the outstanding event, which was provided timely and topical information. Please plan to attend next year's program on Saturday, March 30th, 2024. As in years past, we've experienced a few staffing changes. Deputy State Fire Marshal Chris McIntyre, who is here today on the Lower Eastern Shore, has been assigned a new ATF Explosive K9 Pauly. Deputy Fire Marshal Jeff Thomas from the Lower Shore, who's also here, has been assigned a new ATF Accelerant Dog, Deacon. And Deacon is our first yellow lab. Oh, there he is. Yeah, Deacon's our first yellow lab for the Office of State Fire Marshal. So it's kind of cool having him on board. So. Senior Deputy State Fire Marshal Kristen Iverman has retired from the agency with over 15 years of service. She worked in our Western region at headquarters, and well wishes were extended to her in her retirement. Deputy State Fire Marshal Brandon Beal and Joe Walters were promoted to Deputy Chief. Chief Beal is the commander of our Western region, and Chief Walters is assigned to headquarters. Also, State Fire Marshal staff continue to perform at high levels in 2022. The office conducted a total of 799 investigations, of which 598 were fire-related, 135 explosive-related cases, and 66 other related investigations. 40 criminal cases were closed by arrest, with 68 individuals being arrested. The agency-wide arson closure rate was 25%, which is well above the national average. Across the state in 2022, fires determined to be incendiary was reduced by 16.2%. That's great. That's from all the different investigative units responding. So the local units from Montgomery, Anne Arundel, the larger companies, that's outstanding that we're knocking that number down across the state for incendiary fires. This level of performance is outstanding in light of the increased training and other assignments the fire and explosive investigators have. A total of 10,839 fire and life safety inspections were conducted. The Office of the State Fire Marshal Fire Protection and Engineers reviewed 1,484 construction and fire protection system plans. The dedication of our personnel is evident by these numbers. It is through an agency-wide commitment to fire and life safety that we work for the citizens and with the Maryland Fire Service to accomplish the mission of protecting life and property from fires and explosions. The Office of the State Fire Marshal blog site continues to be updated for your use. The site contains Office of the State Fire Marshal news and information. Fatality and burn injury reports can be completed securely online. Local jurisdictions can also share smoke alarm saves, fire sprinkler saves, and our customers can request fire safety inspections and submit arson tips. I am again asking that you step up your fire and prevention efforts. The numbers are showing that we need to do so. We need to continue to take every opportunity to prevent that 911 call and to inform our communities about fire and injury prevention. Take the time now and when you go back home from convention to network with other departments, the MSFA Fire Prevention Life Safety Committee, state and county fire prevention ambassadors, NFPA, FABSCOM, MarylandLifeSafety.org, and get those fire and injury prevention messages out into your community each and every day. Excuse me. Take all opportunities to interact with the public, not just during Fire Prevention Week. Again, we need to step up our efforts across the state with emphasis on our rural counties. Provide fire safety information to folks in your community that are attending your fundraising events that many of you hold throughout the year. When you do have a fire incident, make it a point to get back to that area as soon as possible, to talk to people that were impacted by the event, and make sure your personnel are checking to see if smoke alarms are present on every response to homes and within your community. Promote the 10-year sealed battery smoke alarms on every level of your homes. Have escape plans. Get out, stay out, close those bedroom doors again while sleeping and evacuating during an active fire incident, and immediately making that 911 call. Focus on those populations that continue to be impacted by the fire, the very young, our elderly, and those that have disabilities, all of which are factors that prevent timely escape from a fire. Do not wait for them to call you. Reach out and ask to visit and share the information and knowledge you have on preventing fires and injuries. I just saw in the news this past weekend there was events down in Salisbury, there's events in Easton, huge community events. Didn't see any fire department people there. They may have been there, but the news didn't show them. But those are the events you need to take advantage of. Get out there and talk to the folks. It takes very little time, but the information you share will go a long way in the end to saving lives. With the gracious support of the MSFA and the National Fire Sprinkler Association, we were able to purchase a new mascot costume. There you go. What do you think? Yeah? The mascot depicts a fire sprinkler and is ready to be spread the message across Maryland and beyond. Being the first of its kind, we are running a Name Our Mascot contest. This contest will run until August 4th, 2023, and they will be announced this year at the Mid-Atlantic Life Safety Conference. Please log on to our blog or visit our booth to learn how you can submit a name. Nobody likes my name. Nobody likes my name.
I'm Sparky the fire dog.
Sparky!
Sparky the fire dog, and I need your help, so let's all do our part. If you give Sparky a helping hand, we'll work together and we'll never give a fire a place to start. You needn't wait till you're grown up, you can be a fireman right now. Good firemen keep a fire from starting. I can teach you how. Work with Sparky the fire dog. Help Sparky the fire dog. When you're careful, then you're really smart. So never give a fire a place to start. If you want to help Sparky, remember a clean home seldom burns. So never give a fire a place to start.
So we want to thank the MSFA for that. We were able to purchase that Sparky costume, and obviously this costume will be available for everybody here to attend your events. Just inquire through Teresa, and we really thank the MSA for all the support they give the office each and every year. I would like to thank the Maryland Fire Service for your continued support, dedication, and friendship. Helping me move the agency forward. Could have been accomplished if we were not all working together. I would also like to thank and recognize the Office of State Fire Marshal Alumni Association for their continued support for the agency and the work that they are doing in the community to make lives better. All the members of the OSFM will continue to perform their public safety mission with dedication, compassion, and pride. The challenges that we face each day create endless opportunities. We're always seeking out those opportunities in order to perform better mission. With your support, continually move the agency and the Maryland Fire Service forward. Also, State Fire Marshal staff members look forward to working closely with the new MSFA President, Eric Smothers, and the LA MSFA President, Gene Main, and their leadership teams. Wish them great success during their terms of office. Please continue to make fire and energy prevention the most important service that your department provides in your community. Step up and reinforce this message with your members and every chance you get. Thank you for all your support, dedication, and devotion to keeping Maryland Fire safe. Enjoy the rest of your convention, and please have a safe trip home. Thank you. I'm not done yet. I got a little bit more to say. As many of you know, I may not know, but that's my retirement at the end of the year. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time and just going over the accomplishments that we made over these last 10 years in the Office of State Fire Marshal. Working as a team and working with my team, we've seen many accomplishments. We brought on and continue to seek out new technology. A new record management system will be up and running next year. All inspections, plan reviews, and fee collections will be electronic and managed by the system. We're doing away with paper. It's only been, 60 years next year for the fire marshal. We're still rating inspections. That goes away next year. The partnerships and relationships that we've shared over these many years have been strengthened, and we continue to cultivate new ones as we move forward. Our personnel are safer today than ever due to the purchase of new vehicles, which I want to thank the MSFA. If you remember back in the day, they gave us a car. I want to thank them for that. We've improved our respiratory protection. We have 2 sets of personal protective clothing now for each investigator and new gear cleaning appliances, all of which has greatly enhanced the safety of those required to conduct fire and explosive investigation scenes. Put out many policies to improve safety on the scene while conducting investigations, cancer reduction. 2 investigators on the scene addressed mental health issues with employees and their families. Brought on Canine Sandy, our comfort and facility dog, who made a tremendous difference in the lives of so many. And I want to thank Mike and Sue Redding, who are Sandy's handlers. And they're here. I think Michael's still here. There he is. He's in the back. But yeah, thank you, Michael. That's probably one of our greatest, not making everybody safer. Next to that, having Sandy out there has done a tremendous job. And you should ask, when you get a chance, if you see Mike or Sue, ask them about some of the stories that they've helped with. Going to schools, going to 911 centers, going on scenes of calls, traumatic. It's been making a huge difference. So extremely happy about that. And we got laptops, cell phones, tablets. When I first came to the office, nobody had a cell phone. That was 10 years ago. I mean, so we got those. We were able to obtain raises for our inspectors, our engineers, and sworn staff. I want to thank the Hogan administration for that. We expanded our bomb squad staffing and have filled all 17 positions. We are bringing on 10 new inspectors in July and looking at new positions for mid-level management and a senior inspector in each region. We continue to hire the best of the best, as was seen in our Deputy of the Year award. Not to mention, we survived the pandemic, and we continue to mourn the loss of Deputy Chief Sandra Cohen, who has been the only line of duty death in the agency. We have obtained grants to purchase bomb and squad equipment and safety equipment. We worked hard in Annapolis with the help of the MSFA for residential sprinklers, CO, and 10-year sealed battery smoke alarms, arc-resistant CSST, and I will tell you that, with residential sprinklers, we're only 1 of 2 states, us in California, that require sprinklers in new homes. And with regards to the arc-resistant corrugated stainless steel tubing that's used in gas piping systems for propane and natural gas, we're the only state in the country that has a law for that requires the arc resistant. And many other causes that improve the safety of our firefighters in the state. I'm extremely proud of all the staff at the OSFM. They work hard and dedicated to our mission. For those staff that are here in the audience, would you all stand up, please? For the Office of State Fire Marshal staff, just stand up. And I can't thank them enough. It's made my job easy. Yeah, we've had our moments. We have. I tell everybody we're a small agency, but a big family. I have truly been blessed over these 50 years in the fire service. And then I've been able to do everything that I really wanted to do position-wise. I set out and wanted to do certain things when I was with Montgomery County for 30 years, and I was able to take on those positions and make a difference. I'm happy that I had not only impact here in Maryland, but across the country. There's one person that has shared this journey with me. As State Fire Marshal, from the time I got the call out here on the beach, that has been by my side all this time, supporting and encouraging me all the way through. Kels, I love you each and every day. And I'm looking forward to the new chapter that we're going to have. the end of the year. It's truly been an honor and a privilege to me to serve as your fourth state fire marshal in modern times, as there were others before 1964. I leave knowing that it made things better for our staff and for our agency, and hope they continue to move the agency forward in the next 10 years under the new fire marshal. Thank you all so much. May God bless you. God bless your families. God bless the Maryland Fire Service. And I appreciate it.
Stand. As Brian has stated that he is stepping down, we have a resolution for Brian, and I'm not going to read all the whereas, therefores, but I'll get to the final paragraph. Be it resolved this 19th day of June 2023 that the Maryland State Firemen's Association formally extends its thanks, gratitude to the Maryland State Fire Marshal, Brian Geraci, for his many years of dedication to public safety and for his partnership with the MSFA, signed by myself as president. Brian, one of the things I'll never forget, he's been a real advocate on residential sprinklers. And as you know, our committee, who has the residential sprinkler trailers that go around, we had it up for our open house a few years back. And I asked Brian if we could have someone from his agency to come and discuss the pros on residential sprinklers. And as the event on the trailer was going on, and Brian himself came up to Jarrettsville, and I was truly amazed at that time. And he's been a true friend to the emergency services of the state of Maryland. And Brian, thank you so much. At this time, the chair recognizes from the Maryland Fire Service Qualification Board, Mike Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, members of the MSFA, honored guests, and visitors to this great convention. My name is Michael Robinson. I'm the chair of the Maryland Fire Service Personnel Qualifications Board, and we are responsible for certification of fire service personnel across Maryland. Before I begin my brief report, I'd like to recognize any of our delegates or alternates who are here in the audience. If you all please stand for recognition. Now we have a couple of them. And for those not familiar with the MFSPQB, the MFSPQB is not a state agency. We were founded in 1986, and we were actually the result of a subcommittee of the Maryland Fire Rescue Education Training Commission that met back in 1984 and 1985, and we had very good representation throughout the fire service. 1986, we held our first meeting in Annapolis, and here we are 37 years later. We serve as the certification arm within the state of Maryland. We work very closely with the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, and I'd like to acknowledge their director, Michael Cox, Jack Bell, who's our certification manager, and our executive secretary, who's also with MIFRE, Mr. Robert Rose. These are the people that manage the daily operations of our organization. And so what do? We certify people. In Maryland, we've been known for many years, going back to the beginning of the Maryland fire service extension back in the 1920s, actually, and coming full cycle. Today, whether you're in Oakland, Maryland, or you're in the southernmost company in Worcester County, you will find in company bylaws, you'll find in county requirements and employment requirements, the need for Maryland Fire Service Personnel Qualifications Board credentials. We have a partnership with MSFA. The credentials are tied directly to MSFA classes. So you take your MSFA class, you take your exam, and that's all tied into certification. In Carroll County, where I've had the distinct honor for almost 2 years now to be the chief and director of their combination fire and EMS system, we are now in the midst of hiring up to 250 people, and that's all based on MFSPQB credentials. So the system does work, and we are making great progress. There are some changes on the horizon coming from changes in NFPA standards, and we can assure you we'll be watching those changes. We welcome everyone to go down to our booth, which is co-located with MSFA, and take the opportunity to ask for a transcript to see where you're certified, what MSFA courses you have, and then see what you are eligible to do with certification. Very simple. It's all right there with your transcripts. You pay a very slight fee of about $10, and you can get state and national certification, which is recognized now in just about every state within the United States. We now total 181,000 certifications that we have issued since our beginning. And the MFSPQB brought together career, volunteer, the major organizations of the state, and we continue to operate after 37 years. This past year, we certified 6,441 new personnel under the Pro Board, and that means state and national certificates. We will be visited in the fall by the two accrediting organizations, both IFSAC and the Pro Board, and they'll be spending each of them close to a week here looking at the way we do testing, looking at our record keeping, looking to make sure that we assure that everything meets all quality assurance standards based on a self-study document. And we believe we will be more than ready for that. So to you, the users of our system, I would like to thank you all for continuing to get recognized for your certifications. I'd also like to recognize the Carroll County Fire and EMS Services who allow me the time to do this in addition to my full-time appointment there. And finally, I'd like to call upon President Kurtz and present him with an official copy of both our annual report and one of our official goodie bags, just as a token of our appreciation, because the MSFA is certainly an integral part of what we do. And we wish both this year's officers and the incoming officers the best in the future. And we look for a continued partnership to continue to make Maryland certification the mark of professional excellence in our fire and EMS system in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Whoops. You don't need to. Yeah. Okay, our main presentation this afternoon is on the Maryland Active Assailant Interdisciplinary Work Group. We have Sergeant Travis Nelson for the Maryland State Police, co-chair of the Maryland Active Assailant Interdisciplinary Work Group from Pikesville. And we also have Randy Lithicum, Director of EMS Preparedness and Operation of MIMS, who co-chairs the Maryland Active Assailant Interdisciplinary Work Group of Baltimore. These two members of the Maryland Active Assailant Interdisciplinary Work Group will provide an update on a recent active assailant preparedness efforts. The program will also include a discussion of recent developed guidelines and best practice documents, discussed enhancements to the website and outreach efforts, and provide information on how partners across the state can contribute to the work group. So Sergeant Travis Nelson and Randy Lithicum.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. We will preface the presentation by saying we will not use the full time. So you will actually get out a little early, or we'll get you back on schedule a little early. So I know that's one of the main interests of any class that you're ever sitting through. So let's try to make this work as fast as possible. Did that change the slide? All right, yeah. Okay, so a quick introduction here. There's a lot of buttons back here, just FYI. Quick introduction is, my name is Travis Nelson. I'm actually a liaison with the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. And actually, I've been the co-chair of this organization since it started in 2014. So by now, if Sparky has been around that long with the fire service, maybe somebody can give me a mascot with doing this work group if we make any progress. So we'll burn through these slides, but I'll first let my co-presenter Randy do a little intro of himself.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Randy Lithicum. I'm the Director of EMS Preparedness and Operations with MIMS, also a longtime member of the work group and co-chair with Sergeant Nelson.
All right, so the background of the work group. If any of you have been a part of our presentations before, we're going to consolidate this as much as possible. But shortly after the Naval Yard shooting was when the group was actually called together. John Donahue, who was previously in Randy's position, and I were tasked with being the co-chairs of the group. And we presented a guidance to first responders on active assailant incidents in September of 2014. Since then, obviously, active shooter, active assailant incidences have grown and also tried to and evolved based on the different types of threats. So we've tried to grow and evolve with them, and we feel like we're probably doing a pretty good job, but obviously there's always an opportunity to be better. In 2018, following the Parkland school shooting, Governor Hogan signed an executive order which brought the group back together and gave us additional challenges. It also added different members of the work group to include the U.S. Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, United States Secret Service, FBI, and several other state agencies. MSFA, Maryland Fire Chiefs, and there are several fire representatives that are on the group. And those representatives have the same vote as law enforcement. So the key is that we try to bring together everybody at the same level, so that way nobody has more of a say than the other. It's really a collective effort, and the guidance that we're pushing out and approving is by unanimous effort. It's a large work group. There's roughly 45 people that are on it. So there's subcommittees from that main work group that focus in on certain targeted areas, and they create the guidance that hopefully will help you. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of how you should be training certain things and what exactly you should be doing. We're going to give you the framework, so hopefully you can take that back to your organizations and begin this process. If we were going to try to tell you how to respond to an active assailant incident, it's going to be completely different in Baltimore City than it is going to be in Worcester County. So we don't want to try to give you specific anecdotal advice. We want to try to give you the framework to create a plan and to how to do that properly. And then we're going to present several different products that you'll be able to hopefully take back after today. Get your phones ready. They're QR codes because we have really smart people that know how to do that. And those will be coming up. In the bottom of the slides, you'll see that there's a web page. That web page is going to be on every slide, and that's the foundation for where you can get all of this information.
So we're going to go over some of the resources that are available. They're on the website. They're also going to be on some following slides you can get to through a QR code. They include support services for mass casualty incidents, ICS field operations guide, equipment guidance and recommendations, the website, and then a new one that we're working on, ballistic protection for EMS. All right, support services for mass casualty events is a new plan. It's on our website. You can also get to it through this QR code. It basically assists jurisdictions with working through everything that happens outside of the dealing with the casualties. This is working with people who witness the event, business owners, family members. It's really a general guideline of all the things to think about after an event occurs and in the hours and sometimes days and weeks afterwards. So it's a really good document. It's one of the first of its kind. It was put together through use of help from a lot of key stakeholders. So that's a great document. Second one, much more applicable to us as first responders, is the Field Operations Guide. This one was also put together bringing in best practices from across the country and Maryland stakeholders. And it basically lists the guides and actions you should take when responding to an active assailant event. We've also had some of these printed. It's a small field operations guide. It's also on an app, and it's available to take a look at when you're dispatched to an active assailant type event, or when you're in a staging area, or something to take a look at, obviously prior to an event. It lists all the types of things that you should be thinking of, both for fire, EMS, as well as law enforcement. And another one that we're currently working on is ballistic protection for EMS. Many jurisdictions have bought ballistic protection. There's many good plans out there. We're trying to collect best practices from across Maryland and across the country to guide what you should be thinking about, when to wear ballistic protection, how, different types of considerations. So that's one we're working on that will be out soon.
All right, there's a step back here in case you guys didn't see Chief Robinson fall earlier. So we're trying to be careful as we trade back and forth. So the equipment guidance and recommendations, that is something that we just recently updated in 2022. This is probably one of the more actively sought after guidance documents. People want to know what should they buy, what's applicable to them, and what's going to work. The biggest thing that, so that's available at the QR code. The biggest thing that we always want to reinforce though, if you're going to buy equipment, you're buying equipment then you should already have some level of a plan already established within your department. So there's no point in buying equipment if you don't have a plan for how you're going to maintain that equipment. If you buy it off of some sort of grant funding, then how are you going to sustain it if that grant funding isn't available in 5 years? So it's important that when you look at your equipment, as you start to think, okay, I think we have the budget to do this, how are you going to sustain it? How are you ensuring that all your people are trained in it? The things that we try to consider, especially with ballistic protection, is those of us that work in the law enforcement field wear ballistic protection every single day. We're used to moving throughout our day in it. We do different things. However, those in EMS, if they're only putting it on for certain incidents, and those incidents already have you under a high level of stress and you're carrying about 20 pounds more than you normally are, what's that going to do to your body? Do you feel like in your role right now, could you effectively perform and carry the ballistic protection, things of that nature? So the equipment is great. However, make sure that you've properly prepared your personnel, because the last thing that you want to see is one of your members drop in the middle of one of these incidents that are already high stress because of too much stress on their own body. So there's another QR code. If they're not working, I'm sorry, but they should work. If it's your phone, it's not mine. So the next thing that we really want to focus on is the active assailant webpage. When we looked at updating the guidance document from 2014, everybody said, we want a new document, we want a new document. But tell me, when was the last time you sat down and you read a 60-page document, unless you absolutely had to? You thumb to the part that you need and you try to pull out snippets of what you want. Even when you're trying to test for your protocol exam, you don't read the book cover to cover. However, it doesn't mean that any of the information is not necessarily relevant or doesn't need to be in there. But what we tried to do is make it more user-friendly for you. So based on who is going to be looking for the information, We get a lot of inquiries, particularly after there's an event in the country of what can I do if I have a church? How can I better protect my church from one of these events? Well, I'm not going to give them the guidance for first responders. They're not first responders. So we have different sections of the webpage that are tailored towards different places. In your field, there's a whole section for emergency management and public safety. If you're thinking about doing an exercise, there is a template for conducting that exercise and making sure that a lot of people, probably number one thing we get is, hey, I want to do an active shooter exercise. And we say, that's great. However, what are you exercising? If I was to come to you and say, I'm going to give you a test on how to fill this room with chairs, but you were never trained in how to properly fill the room with chairs, nor did you ever have the chance to practice, then I'm setting you up for some level of failure. So what we try to do is ensure that you've got a plan, you've provided the proper equipment to execute the plan, you've trained your members on that plan, and then you exercise it. So you're evaluating its effectiveness based on the whole process. And then that creates a continuum. So that way in 2 years, you're just going back through and you're updating the plan. Our templates have input from everyone from the fire marshal's office to our EMS personnel, emergency management, private sector, all across the board. They weigh in to make sure, because they have their own perspectives that make this stuff work. And it's all available on our webpage. So for those of you that are squirming in your seats, and you're like, I need one more obligation to help fill out my day, and I really want to be a part of this. Okay, so we can include you into making sure that your time is most appropriately applied, though. So when people say, I want to join the work group, well, the work group really doesn't do a lot of the fine moving. They get the overall documents, they get it presented from a subcommittee, and then they vote on whether or not to move it forward. As we kind of mentioned, it's a 45-person body. It takes a little bit of time to get things across the finish line. However, we have a bunch of legal requirements that we have to meet because it's a governor's committee, and we have to make sure that that we have the appropriate notices. We have to open our meetings to the public and things like that. So if you really want to be involved to a certain level that's going to make a difference, the best way to do it is to try to get involved in a subcommittee based on your level of interest. If you're a public information officer, we have a community outreach subcommittee. How can we best engage with the communities in your neighborhood to get them to better prepare for these things and work with you? If you're an expert in EMS or you're an expert in fire service or whatever, we have a first responder subcommittee. We have these committees that are creating these documents like the support services for mass casualty incidents that are really being sought upon. We had the huge state of California reach out because they wanted this plan. They had not seen it before, and they were really hoping we had some. We travel across the country to provide them, and it's because of the way that we do it with these small committees. So if you have that level of interest and you want to reach out, particularly in community outreach and first responder guidelines, then please send us an email. When I say send us an email, send that big email address an email, because that means that our admin that keeps us straight, Lisa's going to get it and she's going to respond. I'm not saying that Randy and I are going to ignore you, but Randy will, and I'll just have to. No, I'm kidding. But really the Active Sound web email is the best way to get through to us, because Lisa's going to catch it. She's going to send it to the right person, which may be a subcommittee chair, and then she's really good about following up. So if we don't handle something, she nudges us to make sure that we actually did it. Again, the web page is what we're going to push the most, and really that is the summary of our overall presentation. I know it seems short, but we wanted to get everybody back on schedule. We wanted to get you back on time and just present you with the information as quickly as possible. Randy, anything else? All right. Thank you, everyone.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank them for their presentation and present them with a convention mug.
I don't normally let a fireman tell me what to do, just for the record. No, I'm kidding.
At this time, the chair recognizes the report for the Maryland Institute of Emergency Medical Services, Dr. Ted Dilbridge.
Hey there, good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to give you a quick update about the EMS system in Maryland, which I'll start at the end, which is to tell you that this year is Maryland's EMS 50th anniversary. It was in 1973 when then Governor Mandel proclaimed a statewide EMS system, and Maryland became the first state in the country to have a statewide EMS system. And there we go. Maryland last year transported about 532,000 people to hospitals. This graphic represents who's the busiest in the state in terms of doing all that business, Baltimore City and Baltimore County. It turns out that Salisbury is about the median busyness for an EMS agency in the state. This is the distribution among hospitals. The 5 busiest hospitals in Maryland are Anne Arundel Medical Center, Bayview, Franklin Square, Frederick, Meredith, and you can see the rest still in there. About 3.5% of Maryland EMS patients go to hospitals out of state. Sometimes that's because they're closer, and sometimes, unfortunately, it's to avoid hospitals in Maryland, and I'll come to that back in a second. So far this year, we're on pace to exceed last year's target by just a few. The distribution among hospitals remains about the same. It turns out about 25% of all emergency department patients in the state in each individual hospital are made up of EMS patients. So oftentimes we believe intuitively that EMS makes up a big part of the business for each hospital emergency department. In actuality, it's a minority at about 25% of patients. The problem is that we're often trying to take patients to an emergency department that's overflowing, just like a bathtub is. And there are about 2,000 treatment spaces in hospital emergency departments across the state of Maryland at any given time. On any given morning, about 25% of those spaces are being occupied by patients who the hospital would characterize as boarding. People who are done with their emergency department care and really should be on to the next phase of whatever it is they need, admitted to the hospital, transferred to someplace else, and wherever that is, something is, it's unavailable to them. About 20% of those patients are behavioral health patients with absolutely no place to go, sort of stuck. And so we've been working hard to call attention on behalf of the hospitals to the plight they create for the EMS system when they cause backup in their overflowing situation. This graphic shows you what the 90th percentile transfer of care interval is on a per hospital basis. The red line going across it is the target, 30 minutes. Our expectation is that EMS delivering a patient to a hospital within 30 minutes, 90% of the time, ought to be able to effectively transfer responsibility of care from themselves to hospital personnel. And you can see on the graphic that about 25% of the hospitals in Maryland are able to accomplish that goal. So we have spent the past year with incredible intensity trying to bring attention to the interface between the EMS system and hospital emergency departments. Part of that is by convening a group we call the Collaborative of Hospital Emergency Services, and they've met up with, these are administrative and clinical leaders from every hospital in the state. They've met up with EMS leaders, a section of EMS leaders from across the state, to come to a reasonable understanding of what the goal is. And it's interesting because although they have challenges meeting the 30-minute goal on a regular basis, they agree that that's a reasonable goal. And they acknowledge that their responsibility to take care of the patient began when the EMS crew and the patient they're transferring arrived at the hospital. And they also acknowledge that it's in nobody's best interest for either the patient or EMS to be standing in the hallway for some protracted period of time. So based on that, we've created a guidance document that is currently out being vetted that has responsibilities for both EMS personnel and for hospital personnel when targets can't be met. What we lack right now is a uniform approach to dealing with the problem when it exists in real time. And so we're working toward that goal of creating that. What's really important is that we're working with the Health Services Cost Review Commission to make this a hospital quality metric that the HSCRC uses to, will eventually use to help incentivize or disincentivize hospitals from efficient practices. We are trying to make the efficiency of the emergency department a target, a focus, of business of the HSCRC, and at their meeting just this past week, they began the process of implementing some of these things. So they're focusing on the length of stay for people in emergency departments who eventually get discharged, the length of stay for people in emergency departments who eventually get admitted to the hospital, and that transfer of care interval and how efficiently hospitals are at transferring care from EMS personnel to hospital emergency department personnel. That's a huge, big, giant deal. It will help if EMS folks take advantage of the tools that we've created for them to make sure that they don't overwhelm a particular hospital at any given time. Call attention to the hospital ambulance dashboard, which you can download off the MEMS website. It's like a progressive web application you put on your cell phone, and you can at any given time see the hospitals you select, how many ambulances are there sort of in limbo. It works in every county in the state except for Allegheny and St. Mary's. And that's a challenge with the CAD transfer, the CAD data transferring to MEMS via image trend that we continue to work on. We have, so aside from all that hospital mumbo jumbo and interface, we have core things that we need to continue to work on in Maryland, as do EMS clinicians across the United States. One is traffic fatalities. You can see there the number of traffic fatalities in Maryland still is sky high. About 63% are drivers. 20-some% of traffic fatalities involve pedestrians. Oftentimes it's because pedestrians aren't where drivers predict them to be. It's very rarely, or pedestrians in crosswalks don't represent very many of those people, but pedestrians walking on interstate highways and in places where you wouldn't expect them is a real problem. We want to focus on the National Roadway Safety Strategy published by the Department of Transportation last year, which focuses on safer people, safer roads, safer speeds, safer vehicles, and post-crash care. EMS is a critical component to roadway safety. It turns out that about 40% or 2 of every 5 traffic fatalities are alive when EMS first arrives on the scene. And so we're about figuring out what's the opportunity for improving the survivability of crash victims when EMS arrives and those people are still alive. We continue to have a serious problem with opioids. We track the amount of naloxone that's given by the EMS system weekly. This is the graphic for the past 3 years, and I realize it's hard to pull out, but let me just assure you, if you can see the gray line in the middle, we haven't turned the corner yet. We are really good at leaving behind naloxone for people that are treated with naloxone and subsequently refuse going to the hospital, which turns out to be about 30% of all the people resuscitated with naloxone in the field. We know that when naloxone is left behind, the people in that community are likely to receive naloxone 6 times more often than in communities where the EMS system doesn't leave behind naloxone. But the next generation of our care of opioid overdose victims is to begin to think about things like buprenorphine, begin to assimilate people into ongoing care for their opioid use disorder, as opposed to just continuing to resuscitate them time after time after time with naloxone, which we know eventually gets you back a dead person eventually. We, despite having a statewide EMS system that is second to none, don't do particularly snazzy in terms of cardiac arrest resuscitation. This graphic shows you the dark bar is Maryland, the red bar is cardiac arrest resuscitation for the nation. And you can see that it doesn't matter what the rhythm is when we start. We don't do particularly any better at return of spontaneous circulation or getting people admitted to the hospital or getting people to survive with good neurologic outcome. It turns out that in Maryland, more cardiac arrests or a higher proportion occur in people's homes and in skilled nursing facilities, which is bad. More cardiac arrests are unwitnessed, which is bad. There's less bystander CPR, which is obviously not as good. And there is less bystander application of automatic external defibrillators, which is also not good. So it turns out that fewer of our cardiac arrest cases when EMS arrives are in ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia, some shockable rhythm, more people are likely to be in asystole and not resuscitatable. And so the message is that we can do a lot of things. We can do better CPR. We can employ more gadgetry. Our interventions have to do with getting more people to do CPR faster, getting more defibrillators out there and used so that when EMS gets there, they have a viable patient to deal with. It turns out that when EMS arrives and there's been bystander intervention in the form of CPR or an automatic external defibrillator, we do about average with the nation in terms of resuscitating people from cardiac arrest. We are incredibly focused on creating new EMS clinicians. We've done a pretty good job. The green line is the number of new EMTs across the state. You can see over the course of time, we've expanded the number of EMTs we can create in any given year. We're challenged with workforce attrition. People leave the workforce faster than we anticipate. So we make a lot of them, but we don't get too far ahead. And this is the number of active EMS clinicians by virtue of showing up on an EMEDS report over the course of the year. The green line at the top is EMTs. The red line in the middle are paramedics. And so we get a few more paramedics, but we don't really get ahead in terms of EMTs. Last year, we were the beneficiaries of a grant from the CDC Workforce Development Grant that provided a stipend to EMT students no matter where they took class. The stipend was $2,000. The last 1,000 of those $2,000 were given to them when they passed the National Registry test. We had enough funding to sponsor 500 students. We sponsored all 500, and the attrition rate from an EMT course was a little more than 3%, compared to double digits typically when there's no stipend involved. And we are in the preliminary stages of revamping that funding. And I'll talk really quickly about some legislative initiatives that we're working on this year upcoming. One is the Commission to Advance and Strengthen Firefighting and Emergency Medical Services within Maryland. I'm sure you all are familiar with that. It's being coordinated by the Department of Labor. And the first steering committee meeting for that, the commission meeting, occurs tomorrow here at your convention. To the point of AEDs and more pervasiveness in the community, AEDs as of January 1st, 2024 will be required in grocery stores of any size and restaurants that have more than 100 seats and with certain gross sales. And while statistically speaking, actually cardiac arrests don't generally happen in those places in the numbers that you might imagine compared to the numbers of those places, it'd be really good to get AEDs out in the community. Oh, well, never mind. There was to be a task force on reducing emergency department wait times. It didn't pass the legislature. However, the Maryland Hospital Association is taking up that challenge, and MEMS is a part of that discussion too. And again, it's the 50th anniversary of Maryland EMS. We hope to do some things throughout the year, whether you all recognize it or not. Some of you, I'm sure, recognize it a lot. You're all part of the Maryland EMS system, and so thanks for what you do every day, and thanks for having me and giving me a few minutes to tell you what's new. Thanks.
We'd like to thank Dr. Ted Bilbridge for his many years of working with the Maryland State Firemen Association as an allied partner. He and other members from MIMS comes down to Annapolis, and we work with the MSFA funding. And we just want to thank you, Ted, for everything that you do. At this time, the chair recognizes Justin Graves, Director of the RM's Cali Shock Trauma Programs.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. As noted, my name is Justin Graves, Director of Trauma Programs. I'm just going to give you a quick highlight of the year that we've had here at the Medical Center. So, as most of you know, we're located with the University of Maryland in Baltimore. And within the Medical Center is our 108-bed freestanding, first of its kind trauma center in the United States. In 1993, the state legislature designated us the primary adult resource center for the state of Maryland, and as the central referral entity for the Maryland EMS system, and we've been proud to serve in that role since. A little note on our volumes. Of course, we've seen a decrease during COVID, but the bars in red are this year so far, and so we're slated to see another 600 to 800 patients more than we saw last year. So excited to see some of that numbers come back and glad that we're able to provide that care. Little breakdown of our modes of transportation. So 70% of our patients come by most of your organizations by ground, and then another 30% by air. That's inclusive of both our direct admissions and our transfers, interfacility transfers. Something that you probably also are witnessing in the field is an increasing number of falls. And so almost 40% of our patients now are a result of falls. The other 40% or so being MBCs and 20% of penetrating trauma or violent crime usually. Update on our GO team. Many of you have worked with us over the years with this team. Again, the GO team is made up of a trauma attending and a certified registered nurse anesthetist, allowing us to provide advanced resuscitation in the field. And so upon activation, MSP usually will come pick up the team and bring them to the field to do advanced resuscitation or any surgical needs in the field. This year we've had 4 activations of the team. More requests, but 4 actual activations, one being with a few weeks ago. So proud to continue to serve this critical need for Maryland. We've also ramped up our prevention and education programs. You can imagine during COVID, a lot of our in-person stuff had to cease. And so I'm very excited that we have been able to increase more of our programming in person. Stop the Bleed, as many of you also are familiar with, is one of our hallmark primary prevention programs and teaching the state of Maryland how to stop critical bleeding. And so we're available and willing to come out into the community and partner with your agencies, organizations, et cetera, and there'll be a contact at the end on how to reach us to do that. We have a critical care training and education center and do a number of education and training for both our staff as well as pre-hospital providers. Run a number of courses through this center, and it serves as a teaching hub for both, like I mentioned, our critical care teams as well as our EMS partners. So many of you may or may not know we have a global outreach program. So we invite medical providers, first responders from other parts of the country and the world. And so we not only are able to show them kind of what we do, but learn from them as well. And so you see how many folks we brought in and from where this year. They usually come for about 2 weeks and work alongside our trauma surgeons and teams. And of course, we wouldn't be who we are without our partnership with the EMS community. And so we do a number of education and training with and for EMS. I also want to highlight our EMS broadcast. This is a quarterly educational session that is put on both live and then recorded. We are putting out the call if you have any patient cases that you'd like to offer up to present and present the EMS side. We'll present the clinical side once they've arrived at shock trauma. But we're looking for case studies to present at our next EMS conference, and EMS broadcast, and I will have our contact here at the end for that. Also, if you're not aware, we have an EMS liaison team. So these are usually nurses with pre-hospital experience, current or former, in our trauma resuscitation unit. They are assigned the regions, the various regions throughout the state of Maryland, and really act as that point of contact for your departments. If you bring us a patient and are curious to know how they're doing or have questions about anything related to the care of that patient or protocols or otherwise, these are your contacts. I know you can't really see them too well, but if you visit us at the booth, we have this in the larger print as well as a QR code to be able to reach out to them. These are the 2 addresses. Again, the prevention addresses, you can reach us for Stop the Bleed or any type of primary prevention education opportunities. We're happy to partner with you on. And then the STC EMS email, that is the email to reach our liaisons or any questions related for shock trauma direct to this email. We have a team of people that are monitoring that. So I just will end with a huge gratitude to the MSFA and our partnership over the years. Again, you bring us our patients. Without you, we would not obviously be who we are today. So just thank you for the opportunity and your commitment to the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Justin, thank you for your report from shock trauma. We'd like to present you with a convention mug. Justin's We have a few announcements to go. The Jolly Rogers event is this evening, 30th Street, starts at 6:30. If you haven't purchased tickets, tickets are still available downstairs with the ladies next to the $10,000 raffle. Exhibits are open today until 4 p.m. Please go down and look at the vendors and buy some t-shirts. We have a pair of lost glasses. If anyone lost a pair of glasses, they're backstage. Tomorrow, voting will begin at 8 a.m. And the third session tomorrow will start at 8:30. At this time, I will call on Chaplain Charles Barnhart for the benediction.
Please rise for the benediction. Let us be in an attitude of prayer. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this opportunity for us to be here during this session. We give you thanks for those who have shared information and those who've received that information. And we ask you to be with us as we adjourn this second session and be with us until we meet again tomorrow. And now may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen.
We will now recess the second session. We'll start the third session tomorrow morning at 8:30.